Good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot. Today we're going to talk of the Northeast, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. And to talk with us and discuss and give his expertise on all this, with us is General P.C. Nair. First, let me welcome General P.C. Nair. Good evening, General Nair. Welcome to Gunner Shot. For the first time you're on our show. So happy to be having you here.
Sir, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for having me over, sir. Your former BGS, so good to be with you again.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, General P.C. Nair is a career infantry officer who's just retired as the Director General of Assam Rifles. He's given some in-depth interviews in News 9, ANI, and all. And he's pretty well sought after. But that's a different story. I must tell you my relationship with him. When I was commanding the MNG area, he was my BGS. He was the pillar on whom I could dump everything. And whatever problems I had, I used to call Brigadier Nair then and say, PC, just do this. And it was done. And, now I see that it's a matter of great honor for me that he's retired as the DG of Assam Rifles.
Thank you, sir.
And he's guided Assam Rifles at a period of intense stress. Let me explain that before we get into the subject proper. Never in my life has Assam Rifles been put under scrutiny the way it is being put under. It has never been, fingers have never been pointed at Assam Rifles as an organization. It was for the first time in my life that I saw this happening in Manipur. It remains a fine organization. When I was commanding my brigade there, I raised the Assam Rifles Battalion under my command. I know what the boys are. It's sad that in Manipur alone, not in Nagaland, not in Assam, South Assam, anywhere else, Mizoram and Tripura, where Assam Rifles has been deployed, has the integrity of the Assam Rifles come under question. It's only in Manipur. That's something which everyone who sees this show must understand. Because it's one of the finest forces of India. And now it has been held to hostage by our politicians, narrow-minded politicians in Manipur. And the problem in Manipur is fundamentally political. So I leave it at that. And General Nair has had to guide the force through in this period of tribulation. And he's done it rather well. Right? The state is reacting to his candid views. But I think the state has to realize that, you can't go and shake your own pillar. If you shake your own pillar, your building will collapse. And they are foolish enough to do all this. So things will change. But that is not my brief for the day. What we're going to do is we're going to talk of the Northeast as a whole. What I'd request him is first just give an overview of how the Northeast has changed, say, over a period of time. What is the current state in terms of communication, happiness, all that. Then talk of what's happening in Bangladesh. We'll hop on to Myanmar. And then we'll talk of Manipur. We must all realize the role of the DG Assam Rifle is not Manipur. It is the Northeast. Right? And if we don't understand how Northeast is progressing from a person who has the bird's eye view of the complete Northeast, then we are fools. So I'd like him now to, I'll yield the floor to you, Pradeep. Just take it the way you want. Your comfort zone, your thing. You're the man who's telling us everything from the ground, or rather been recently on ground. We guys are sitting elsewhere. Retired old people like me are over. Your retirement journey has just started. Take it on.
Thank you, sir. Uh, so thank you for asking me a question which is, of course, very close to my heart, and I'm really perplexed as to where to start from, given that I have this 2 decade or a little more than 2 decade worth service there. But let me begin by saying, since you asked, what changes have you noticed uh, over the years? There have been huge transformation changes that have happened there, from an area which was not in the mind, or not in the space of public mind for rest of the country. Now things have changed so much. The people there, for them itself, the major complaints were there is no development happening, we're neglected, there is no industry here. um, we are kind of stuck by the Siliguri corridor. There are no connectivities that are happening. So all this was there. I mean, unless you have connectivities, places won't prosper. So that, to a very great degree, has happened. Besides the levels of insurgency, drug trafficking, and all of that, Northeast typically was known as a place where everything is wrong. In some way, that was true, but it is no longer the case. Like you would know, sir, insurgencies started, or the fountainhead of insurgency was the Naga insurgency, which started in the mid 50s. And thereafter, successive uh, ethnicities, people from various other states also took up to insurgencies. The Mizos, the valley-based insurgent groups, then of course the people in Assam, Tripura. It went on, and then of course in the 90s even the cookies picked up arms. So it is a very, very militarized or weaponized kind of a society, which it still is in Manipur. But things have come to a pass where, if you go by the social indices, things have improved tremendously. The health sector, the education, the colleges that have come out, the IIT, the IIMs, all of them have transformed Northeast to a very great extent. And you can today see people and the children from the Northeast everywhere in the country. You go to any big city in the country, you'll find them in the services industry, but they have progressed far beyond the services industry. They're into other places also, in the industry, if I have manufacturing industry, for example. And these people, to my mind, sir, are the ambassadors of the Northeast. Their presence has made people realize as to this is a place from where you get possibly the best talent. Now that's a huge change. Now, since we spoke security, I think that is where we as military men should start. Uh, and let me talk of the Naga insurgency, sir. It's waned to a very great extent. All the groups, by and large, are in ceasefire. There are very few elements which are operating. Essentially, NACNK Yungang faction, which is still there operating across in Burma, but because of the situation there, they're under dire straits themselves. So they do make these sporadic movements into India and then go back, indulge in extortion. But while peace is there is no firing, there's no fighting. The Naga groups that are there in ceasefire are surely into extortion, which is an area of concern. Again, that has reduced from what it used to be earlier. People are now openly desisting. They actually refuse, which was something unheard of. And everywhere in the Naga Hills, when I say Naga Hills, it transcends Nagaland. It's also, I'm talking of
Yeah,
South, I'm also talking of Manipur, parts of Assam also, sir. Here there is a huge transformational change. People want peace, and people are getting peace. Uh, Let me talk of South Arunachal again. This is a place which is not spoken of much, but the effects of Naga insurgency are there. You have a large quantum of Assam Rifle troops that are still deployed there. Pangsau Pass, which you know of, so astride that, very often there are still attacks that happen, the Yungang faction particularly, they do come. And during my tenure of 3 years, as also during my tenure when I was an IG in Nagaland, if I count all of them, I'm talking of now South Arunachal, there were at least 5 or 6 attempts where they came in, fired at our troops, and in one particular instance, one of our JC also got injured. Some of their factions got killed also. But there is no groundswell of support to them as it existed earlier. Uh, Earlier, they thought it is a matter of right for them to collect these taxes, as they call, but extortion as we know it. But that is no longer the case. Yes, it is there, but reduced greatly. Let me talk of Assam. You know what is Ulfa I is now a ramshackle kind of an organization, but we surely should not write it off, given the fact that Paresh Barua is still in Ruili, Yunnan. He continues to be there. What exactly he's doing, we don't know, but surely the Chinese would be using him in a big way. And it is not necessarily to stoke insurgency in Assam, but through him, using him as a conduit, weapons may be supplied. Possibly is being done to the Naga insurgents, to the valley-based insurgent groups, to even Kuki factions, or for that matter, the other factions which are under ceasefire. While they are under ceasefire, it is not that procurement of weapons have stopped. They will continue. It will be a hedge that all the factions will use. So that's a point of concern insofar as Alpha goes. Otherwise, the current dispensation has come down very strongly on them. It's more or less absolute peace now. There are hardly any places where ASPA is there in Assam. Let's talk of Tripura. So Tripura is totally peaceful. Very recently, two major factions have also, I think this last month only, that they came on board and signed a final peace accord with the central government. So Tripura is also now totally peaceful. Mizoram, of course, so it's only those 20 years, 1966 to 1986, till the peace accord got signed, that Mizoram was in a very bad shape. But now things are very different. Uh, but in terms of improvement economically, financially, industries have really not gone to Mizoram, which I feel is an area of concern. And now, what is worrisome for Mizoram is also the large influx of refugees who come in from Myanmar. Official figures are 30 to 40, but some say it could even be 60. Now, there again, there is a difference. Why this variation in numbers is, while I think personally that 60 to 70,000 may have come over an extended period of time from 1st of February 2021 when this fighting broke out there. The point is, many of them have gone back also. So whenever the violence levels has reduced, and anybody in
They've gone.
their right thought they want to go back. In our multiple interactions with them, they tell us we want to go back. It's not that we want to be here. So I would put it at about 30,000 to 40,000 thereabouts. Few of them are indulging in petty thefts, burglary, and all of that. So while there was an open support from the Mizoram government, the people there are not very happy now with these refugees who have come. Some of them are being employed as domestic help, but by and large, that overwhelming sense of welcome that was there doesn't really exist anymore. Otherwise, it's a peaceful state. But Myanmar, of which we shall talk later, the fighting that is happening opposite Myanmar is of particular concern.
Yeah, we'll
Uh,
talk of that. We'll come to that.
Yes, sir. And what I want to specifically bring out here is astride Myanmar, Mizoram, the complete border of Mizoram where it borders Myanmar, there is no post of the Myanmar army or junta Tamadao as we know it. So that is an area of concern. All of them have been taken over by the PDF. Opposite Manipur, again, the Myanmar army only has a presence opposite More and Tamu, and they will hold that at all cost with the maximum strength that can be put there. But otherwise, nowhere opposite Manipur is Myanmar army again entirely taken over by PDF. Opposite Nagaland, Myanmar army is still holding, and we'll talk more of that later, sir. Now, the state
Yeah.
that is left is Manipur. Now, this is something, a lot about
Has been
Manipur has
spoken. Yeah, we'll
been
get back
spoken.
to Manipur, but
So,
we'll get back to Manipur because
but in
that's an
terms of
open source
yes, so we'll touch that separately.
separately. Yeah,
So we'll now come to let's say Bangladesh and then go to Myanmar.
before we get to Bangladesh, you made some very important points which I want to highlight to everyone.
So
uh, about the Northeast, because many times in our thing that we don't see Northeast as a whole, because unless people get the larger picture which you painted, a lot of things will go out of the way, right? uh, you spoke of today Northeast occupies the mind space, and that feeling which everything is wrong has gone out of the equation. I think it's very important. Northeast, a lot of people from the rest of India want to go to Northeast, have an interest about Northeast. Okay, with the improved, connectivity there, communications and things like that, things would have changed dramatically. In my own tenure, which I first went to Northeast in 1980, and the final tenure of mine, and or rather when I signed off from the army in 2016, there are a lot of changes which had taken place, and now 8 years later, much more would have gone through, like you rightly said. Uh, what again, the point I think is very important point which you made is about the weaponized and the militarized society. And this is largely because these are all tribal societies and tribes who live off the land in jungles. They generally are warriors who are hunters. And that gives rise to the militarization of the society, because every tribe wants to hunt in this area with a rifle, right? And or a spear or something like that. And so that I think is a very important point you have made. And yeah, I see a huge influx of people from the Northeast in the rest of India, which was not there 5, 6 years back. Let me give you my own example. When I go to IIT Madras these days, it's very interesting. The guards at the gate, are largely from the Northeast, and they speak Tamil. Just the other day, yeah, I'm not joking. Just the other day, there was this Assami boy, and who gives entry passes, and I had not taken. Went in a different car which doesn't have that automatic entry system. So he said, he spoke to me in Tamil. I wanted to speak to him in Hindi. He said, "Sir, enga poringa?" I suddenly got this thing. And this fellow, I asked him, "Where are you from?" He's from Sibsagar. And I asked him, "How did you learn Tamil?" A matter of 1 year, he's picked up Tamil and he was speaking. So what he's saying is right. There's a huge presence of Northeasterners in, the rest of India, and they are going up the value chain, especially in service industry, and more so in the south, because I find that, correct me if I'm wrong, um, because their inclination is to, for some reason,
Bangalore and Chennai, sir, very fond of.
Bangalore and Chennai are their major destinations, right? It is also to some extent facilitated by a lot of the missionaries who are there, who come from Kerala. So that link with the south is very strong. And I agree with you. There's a huge transformation in the Northeast, and this is something important. All those who are viewing must understand that there's a lot happening in the Northeast, which is good, right? It just don't put make the broad sweep of Northeast is backward and all that. It was not so, right? And yeah, as far as the insurgency is concerned, what General Nair has said is very important. It has waned, but there are, what he's now highlighted is the China connection through people like Paresh Baura and all that. So whatever happens in the north, there is a linkage to north, this thing. And of course, now we'll talk of Bangladesh and Myanmar and all that, and we'll get to that. So fine, that was a great overview, Pradeep. So let's talk of Bangladesh, and where do you see? Well, we've been discussing Bangladesh often. So your views on it, all yours.
So Bangladesh and Myanmar are two very important countries for our Act East policy, or Look East, which was Look East earlier. And many times I've been asked a question. Before coming to Bangladesh, I'm trying to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just
Please, yeah. Let
explain.
just feel free. You just speak what you want. Yeah.
The question that is propped up many times is, between Bangladesh and Myanmar, which is more important for our Act East policy? To which my answer is, Act East policy should not be seen in isolation. For acting East, you have to act through the Northeast. So to act through the Northeast, first you need Northeast itself to develop. For that, it is Bangladesh which is very important, given the natural connectivity that existed pre-independence, pre-1947. The viewers probably should know that the natural connectivity from then Assam, now Meghalaya, and similarly what is the region of Kachar and Tripura, the roads, the rivers, all are in a manner that it naturally gets into Bangladesh. So suddenly, when East Pakistan got created, it was like a cartographic imposition, if I can call that one, for the people of the Northeast. Suddenly, from being connected to rest of the world through Chittagong and the other ports of what is now Bangladesh, they were in a state where they were totally cut off. So that is what I'm saying. For that is the relevance of Bangladesh to the Northeast. But further, if you have to go into the region which is Southeast Asia, that is where Myanmar is our land bridge. For that part, it is Myanmar. So that subtle difference should be understood. Now I come back to Bangladesh, where we started. So the recent change that has happened in the disposition there is surely a major area of concern. And let me start with the security point of view itself. And I would want to speak about this on two fronts. One is the internal security itself for Bangladesh. Uh, Suddenly, the radical elements which were suppressed for a very long time, they have now developed wings. And it is surely something that is an area of concern. I want to highlight what happened in June 2016, Holy Artisan Bakery in Dhaka, where you have these radicalized elements who attacked that cafeteria. Many innocents got killed, including a couple of Indian children, and largely Western people. But it's not just the attack per se. Uh, as Bangladesh went hammer and tongs against the perpetrators, they discovered that there were sleeper cells of those people in West Bengal and Bihar. Of course, whatever must have happened at the higher level between the respective intelligence agencies, I'm not very sure of that. Some action would have been taken, but the point is, it is incorrect to assume that all these sleeper cells would have died. So probably their connections still exist, and the JEI, the Jamaat, or Chhatra Shibir, for that matter, we know where the connections lie. The connections have always been towards Pakistan. So, how will it work for Bangladesh? While there is a great degree of euphoria that somebody who was not very popular has been ousted, but does it work well for the country itself? Time will tell. And we have history which tells you that whenever these radical elements got a little powerful, it didn't work in favor of the country. So that is the internal part and their connections that these radical elements have. The second part, which as military men, which sir you also faced, was the insurgents who were there in the Chittagong Hills and other places. There was not a single insurgent group which didn't have bases there. And during the dispensation that was there during Sheikh Hasina's time, you know what happens. I mean, all of them were out. Some very important leaders got caught. And you are also aware of that Operation Golden Bird, which happened in 1991, if I remember correct. So that is a clear, for people who have not read that, must read that, how the arms got dropped. It came in ship, and it was going through Myanmar, and it was to go to the northeast. Again, you had factions of the Nagas and the other hostile groups of the northeast who were taking all this arms consignment. And that was the first joint operation that was done between Indian Army, Assam Rifle, and the Myanmar armies. Very successful. But the point to know here is that uh, this is an instance uh, which came to light. But there would have been some other instances also when such kind of arms drop or arms carriage would have happened through Bangladesh. So today, as security men, for us, what is of concern is that these areas may again get activated, and support to these people will be given. And the foreign players, who are all, we know who the foreign players are who've been constantly playing here, Pakistan and China largely, will surely try to encash on this change of dispensation that has happened. So that's from the security point of view, sir. Economically, both the countries are intertwined, have been intertwined for quite a long time. While China is still the number one trading partner for Bangladesh, but the land connect, the rail connect, and the people to people connect, though there might be a blip now, is something that has been there for decades. And I think there is a lot that we can work together for. Then you have issues like climate change. Bangladesh is one country which is going to be greatly affected. So you're aware, if I just speak of the international rivers, there are
Yeah,
57
please go ahead.
international rivers which go into Bangladesh, 54 from India and 3 from Myanmar. And all of them are in spate. So while you'll have these rivers in spate and you have rising sea levels happening concurrently, you know what, there is a big area of concern, doomsday kind of a scenario for Bangladesh going ahead in time. And that is where they'll have to work jointly with India. China can only do some peripheral support, some funds they can kind of infuse. But what happens on ground, the hydrographic surveys, the measures to arrest floods, etc., will be done practically between us. And that is another area that we can work together with. Then, of course, is the connect that we have socially. In many of the programs that I've been watching, they have been saying now that the Durga Puja is happening next month. What we always believed in is, for them, it is the Shonar Bangla, or the Bangla identity, which goes well beyond the Islamic identity. So probably Durga Puja, which is going to happen next month, is going to be a test bed. And I have this is again my personal belief that there might be certain blips, but overall you can't take this thing out of them. Though there will be now forces working overtime to ensure that Durga Puja is not celebrated. We know of temples that are being desecrated, people who've been attacked, videos of those are going viral. But sooner rather than later, sense will prevail in them. So these are certain places which we should be addressing.
Yeah, I think the important point which you made is this: the radical element in Bangladesh, uh, the way things are played out, and the way things are coming in social media also, will have a role to play in the future of Bangladesh. And how these radical elements are going to pan out is something which we'll have to watch out for. And they're going to impact the internal security of Bangladesh, and externally they're going to impact us in a big way. They might come to aid of our insurgents. You might have drugs. After all, drugs is something we're not spoken of. We'll speak of when we come to Myanmar. Yeah, and things like that. And the major issue of climate change. Yeah, so these three major issues with Bangladesh and the people to people connect, because radicalization of the Bangladesh society, I see, has grown from almost nothing to something today, right? And I don't think this whole upheaval which has happened in Bangladesh could have happened without the radical element gaining ground. And this is my view, and I've been telling this to everyone. And one has not heard of Hindu temples being desecrated and all that. Like you rightly said, this thing about Durga Puja and all. This will be an asset test how it goes through, and we'll see. And personally, I don't see very good prospects happening in the near run. Um, and unless That's my own view again. Unless there's a political stability in Bangladesh, things won't change. And the way things are, Awami League, which was their strongest political party, is almost marginalized. The BNP was the next party, which has not, which has doesn't have a leader. Whether Tariq Rahman was sitting in London, or Khalida Zia was not very well, and I think she's gone back into hospital. So it's a leaderless party with no great grassroots following. And Jamaat-e Islam, which has got tremendous increased grassroots following, but with a radical bent of mind, um, is gaining ground. So it's not a great cocktail. And the current organization, which is in power, doesn't have political power. It has got some establishment power because US has imposed it, and US aid is coming out now, so the whole story will come out. I'll not go sidetrack. So we're going to have issues with Bangladesh. Very well brought out. Yeah, let's go to Myanmar and talk of Myanmar. Or unless you want to add anything, you're welcome.
I just want to add one thing, sir. The general thought process of feeling is that now that Awami League is gone, it's BNP which will come, whether there's a leader or not. Her son may come or somebody else may come upstage. But I feel it has not worked that way. The Jamaat doesn't have any political weights. I mean, if there's an election today, it is very unlikely that it will come to power. But it has a lot of nuisance value in terms of coercing people, spreading violence, all of that, trying to polarize people. All of that they will do. So, what is of particular concern is that it may not be very simple for BNP also to come to power straight away, given that they don't have one particular leader, and Jamaat will not want to shed powers. There is also the influence or interference of other countries. Who are the people they want? One doesn't know. But what we must also remember is that this present system which they have, a caretaker government, as per their constitution, is supposed to be only for 3 months. So it's over 1 month, and there is a lot of support that is being coming to him. People are saying, so I think it will go beyond the 3 months that it
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
supposed to be for
No
the
doubt.
constitution.
Yeah, yeah,
Will
no
they
doubt about it.
be there? Given that both the parties now don't have any leader uh, who can stand out as a prime ministerial candidate, it may go well beyond 3 months, and the interests that are there in this. So that is the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The interests there are very clear. China has interest, Pakistan has interest, and USA has interest. Every day, as days pass, the interests are coming out. And the US aid, which is a conduit for regime change, which is a regime change. It's established. It's not happened here. It's happened in 20 other revolutions, or you call it, or regime changes which US has instigated, including the Maidan revolutions of Ukraine. You go back to 2004, 2005. The USAID has a role, and they have come out with those for 200 million or whatever it is, where they'll bribe the top lot they'll run. So Bangladesh is in for pain. Though
So,
many Bangladeshis who come here, they vent their anger at India. Bangladesh is not going to go to pain because of India. It's going to go to pain because of USA. It's going to go to pain because of Pakistan. It's going to go to pain because of China, and most importantly, the people of Bangladesh. They have to decide whether they want to be in pain or not. That's their choice. Let them be what they want. Right?
so
Yeah. Right. If you're okay, done with Bangladesh,
yes, we
let's
can
go
come
to
to Myanmar.
Myanmar. Yeah.
Now, this is a very important country on our extreme east, and I would want the viewers to read up a little more on Myanmar. It is a very, very complex uh, country. If I've heard many people saying that in India, Manipur is very small, but it is the most complex state in the country. Similarly, Myanmar is on a larger scale a very, very complicated country in the sense it's a country with the longest with the longest
Civil War.
duration where the military has been in power. From the time they seized power in 1962, they have constantly been in power, except for two occasions when democracy got tested, and uh, it failed, seen from the junta's point of view. Now we need to understand that the major constitution in Myanmar are the Bamars, who form 68% of the population, and they're strung astride the Irrawaddy basins, starting from its.
Uh, PC, 1 minute. Let me interrupt you. Uh, Gentlemen, those who are watching, I would like to tell you very clearly. You can have any comment you want, but if you're going to get personal and talk nonsense, I'll throw you out. I've already banned 2 people, and I'll ban more. You in Ghana short, you have to be know how to talk and put your comments. If they're offensive or abusive, I'm just going to throw you out. Period. After that, we'll talk. Yeah, please go ahead.
So, uh, what I was saying was, so the Burmese or the Burmers, they feel that the culture of the complete country devolves around them, and it is an imposition that they try to make on the states that are on the peripheries. So, in terms of numbers, it is the Burmers who are the maximum, but there are other ethnicities which are very, very different and distinct from each other. Uh, and if I have to name them, they are the Shans, who border China. They are the Kachins, who again border China. Then closer to us, we have Chins, who border Mizoram and Manipurs. A little south from Mizoram, you have Rakhines. Then the others which are there are Karen, the Kareni, which border Thailand. So these are the other states which are also important. Each ethnic group is different from the other. There are 300 languages, close to 300 languages that are spoken in Myanmar. While we may say there are only these 5 6 or 6 7 major ethnicities, the languages are very diverse. uh, Again, Islam, people feel that there is only one brand of Islam and it is all in Rakhine state. Is not the case. So it is spread over various parts of the country. In fact, in Myanmar itself, they consider there are 4 different heads of Islam, 4 different groups. But what comes to light often is the one which is uh,
In
in
Rakhine.
Rakhine. Yes, and the Rohingyas. And I would like to just give a background of what this word Rohingya means. Uh, it is the term, as is understood in Myanmar. I'm seeing from the Myanmar perspective. They say this word Rohingya came from the word Rehem. Um, some 400 years back, when there were some Arab traders who had come on the western coast of Burma. One of their They had a shipwreck, and this is somewhere near Ramri Islands. You would be aware, sir. And the people who were shipwrecked were given succor and given a piece of land by the local king. So they called it Rehem, and from Rehem came the word Rahang, and then it
Rohingya.
became Rohingyas. So that is how it evolves. Now coming back to the importance of Myanmar itself, sir, it is a country where our interests and the interests of China collides. We have 1643 kilometers of border. They have a little over 2,200 kilometers of border. So these are the two major countries that are there. Then in the south, they have Thailand and a little bit of Laos, and of course Bangladesh. Bangladesh, so you're aware, 96% of its border is with India, 4,096 kilometers. With Myanmar, is just 4% of border. Seen from the Myanmar perspective, for them, all borders are disturbed borders, except the Indian border, which they consider as the most peaceful. We have these cultural and centuries old linkages, but other than that, it's a border where they see no trouble coming at all, which is why the least deployment of the Myanmar army is along the Indian borders. If I have to put in perspective, where you would have one battalion of Assam Rifle on the border, opposite you will just have a platoon, or at best a platoon plus, not even a company. So that is the difference that exists there on ground. But for them, the most disturbed border is the Chinese borders,
Chinese
and
border, yeah.
Chinese border, and in that, Shan states. Now, Shan state again, sir, if you see, if it is cut from the center, the northern Shan state is the one which is opposite Yunnan and very troubled. Everything that can happen wrong happens there. You have the largely the Wa, and the United Wa State Army is a insurgent group which has a strength of anything between 25 and 30,000. They have artillery guns, they have missiles, they even have helicopters, and they have air vehicles, tanks. So all of this comes from China's. The other thing is, in this part of Shan state, the language spoken is Chinese. The currency is renminbis. The Wi-Fi connection, everything comes from China. But they have a Myanmar flag also, that is only symbolic. But there is no control of the Myanmar government over this. The southern part of Shan is again an area of concern, because that is the one which forms the part of golden triangles. So all the poppy cultivation happens there, and I've been speaking of the increased poppy cultivation that has been happening in the last 1.5 years, largely here in Shan State. And this part of Shan State contributes 86 to 87% of all the poppy cultivation that is happening in Myanmar. After this, the next is Kachin, and then Chin. In Chin, sir, it is only 2% of poppy cultivation of complete Myanmar, but still it is an area of concern because it is largely opposite
Next to
Manipur. So that when we come to Manipur, we shall speak about that. So this state is the most troubled state for it. So is the state of Kachin. In the south bordering Thailand, you have Karen and Kareni. Again, they have their respective groups which are fighting. The point I'm trying to make is that today there are 35 ethnic armed groups, or ethnic armed organizations, as they're called in Burma, who are fighting the Tamadaws. And it is not just this 35. Then after 1st February 21, the PDF came into existence in May 21. So PDF, as our viewers are aware, is a loosely strung group of multiple people who have taken up arms against the Myanmar army. So now, other than these 35 major insurgent groups that are there, you have this PDF. And people have already read up about this Three Brotherhood Alliance, which has TNLA, Tang National Liberation Army, MNDA, Myanmar National Defense Army Alliance, and the third is Arakan Army. So all of them have made major forays in Shan State. That complete line of communication into China is controlled them, and totally under the patronage of China's. So incidentally, this MNDA, and there's also another called NDA. They're all fallouts of the Communist Party of Burma. So it's in 1989 when Party of Burma broke. Uh, it has a great Chinese influence. They broke into these two groups and some other groups, but all of them are pro-Chinese. That connection with China has not gone. So that is a major area of concern. While China may be the largest weapon provider, the largest business partner, uh, and bailing them out on multiple occasions, but in my many visits to Myanmar and my large interaction with them, what I could make out is there is a huge sense that they're just about tolerating China because they have no other option. They have huge aspirations from India, but they know the limitations that India has in terms of financial muscle. Uh, but there is also another thing which should make us happy, is the cultural connect, and that is Buddhism's. Every Buddhist in Burma, it is not only the Bamars who are Buddhists, even Rakhine, major constitution is Burmese. Even in Sagaing region, it's 92% Burmese. Overall, Buddhists are about close to 87, 88%. So it is aspirational for every citizen who's a Buddhist in Myanmar to come to India once. It's like going to Hajj pilgrimage. All of them want to come to Bodh Gaya at least once, or Sanchi, uh, they feel a great degree of satisfaction, emotional satisfaction, if they come here. So that connect is something which China can't give. But where our interests conflict, like we spoke of the Act East policy, Myanmar being the land bridge. For China, the one which is of most strategically the most important thing for them is reaching the warm waters of Bay of Bengal and the Indian
Exactly.
Ocean. So, we'll talk of that, sir. But I also want to. I just said that they are tolerating China because they have no other option, but they have stood firm on occasions like the Midson projects. Now, Midson project, as you are aware, is a 3.6 billion
Yeah,
project.
the dam
It's
in
a,
the north.
yes, sir. It's actually, I want to bring out certain more issues about this.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
series
please.
of 7 dams, sir. It's a series of 7 dams, while the main one is just 6,000 megawatts, which is at the headwaters of Irrawaddy. There are two tributaries of Irrawaddy which come and meet in northern Kachin, and 40 kilometers downstream is where this 6,000 megawatt project is. But after that, there are six more. So all of them together give close to 20,000 megawatts of electricity.
Power.
90% of this is to go to is to be exported to China.
China.
Not just that, sir. The public realized that when this happened, close to 25,000 people will be left landless. Close to 800 square kilometers of what ground will be submerged underwater. Besides the other ecological damage that it would cause. Um, Plus, another thing which doesn't come out is the Irrawaddy for them is something like our Gangas. Uh,
Ganga.
they associate
Yeah,
their culture with, and they would not want anyone to tamper with what they feel is the origin of their culture, which is where Irrawaddy started. So they stood their ground, and successive governments, whether it is a democracy government, including that is when ASS Aung San Suu Kyi was in power, she also did not straight away sign the deal. She ordered a commission. She knew it's a hot potato which she can't touch because there is huge public resentment against that. So successive military governments have held that, and uh, now also in multiple visits, back and forth movements that happen diplomatically between China and Myanmar, they bring this point out of Mission project. But China, I think, has realized that Myanmar is playing a game, and this eventually they may not get it. So now they've developed certain alternates in Yunnan. Much of this electricity, 90% of it, was going to develop Yunnans. Now they've developed alternates. They've developed solar energy there, wind energy, and also they've developed alternates. But they are still pressing on to Myanmar to kind of pay the money that has been invested for this with a lot of interest. So that is an area of concern. But coming back to what we were speaking of is Chokfu, sir, is the strategically most important is the oil and gas pipelines. So while the oil would come from the Middle East, from where it comes, it cuts down a distance of close to 3,000 kilometers besides the Malacca dilemma, which they have. But more importantly, also 7 days of transit for the ship. So 3,000 kilometers and 7 days of transit is what it saves them. The other one is the gas pipeline, which runs parallel with this. Now, what I want to bring out here is this gas, when it was discovered there, it's offshore again. Uh, our ONGC was involved in this in a very big way. People don't know, and that gas was actually to come to India from Myanmar, then
Myanmar.
into Bangladesh, and then part of it was to go to Nepal also, sir. But somehow this, because four governments were involved in this, there was some problem, some delay, and it got hijacked, and Chinese took that project off. So this is again, I felt, which people would not be aware of. Uh, also, what people, if you see the maps, this actually splits Myanmar into two. This oil and gas pipeline, it's running from almost the center of um, Myanmar's, and the land, 30 meters of land on both sides of these pipelines, they run parallel. has been bought by Chinese. So it's a Chinese piece of land which is going right from the center of the country. I mean, no country which holds its territorial integrity with a great degree of respect will want something like this to happen, but it has happened. So that is again something that people there don't like. They feel that our country's interests have been sold off to this hegemon. Uh, the other thing that I wish to bring out here in this oil and gas pipeline is also there is a resentment within the people who are there near the coast. It has caused a lot of ecological degradation, lot of fishery industry, whatever was existing, has all gone because of the oil leakage that has happened. And strategically, it's a very important thing for us because 125 kilometers north of this is Sitwe, which is where our Kaladan multimodal
Project,
project
yeah.
starts. So this is where conflicts will happen in future once this Kaladan. I mean, the present state in Myanmar cannot go on endlessly. I feel when later on things stabilize and when that project of ours also fructifies, there will be a huge conflict or some kind of problem that will happen between the two countries. That is between us and China.
China. Yeah, I
Yes,
think you covered Myanmar quite a
I
lot.
also wanted to
Yeah,
cover the drug part, but we can do that when we come to Manipur's.
yeah, yeah. So what people don't realize and people don't understand is that Myanmar, like you rightly said, ever since the 50s, ever since it got its independence, has always been in trouble, has always been having a crisis. It has lived from crisis to crisis with the army in power, and that won't change. Won't change. The number of ethnic groupings there won't change. Their control over their territories won't change. This critical situation, which I feel, which I've analyzed Myanmar on many this thing, and then maybe you'd like to comment. You know, at the end of the day, everyone talks Tatmadaw might get run over here, but I don't see an alternate power structure coming into being. And if an alternate power structure doesn't come into being, it's going to be in chaos. And my own view is contrary to popular imagination, whatever China does, China is still unsure of what's going to happen in Myanmar. China itself, from Chinese writings, I make out that they are not very happy with whatever they have are doing in Myanmar. They are doing it, but are they? Is it similar with other places? It's not there. And again, the more interesting part is you see the Myanmar is also considered the Chinese border the most troublesome. The trust here is max. So I think we have a lot of scope to improve our entire equation here because we are almost at the rock bottom here. We need to go up. Your quick views on this, and then we'll go to Manipur.
Sir, you are absolutely right. I think you and I are people in a minority who say that Tatmadaw cannot be just run over very easily. It cannot. Uh, One is it's a institution which has faced multiple crises over the years, and of late people say yes, they faced multiple crises, but never was there a case where the Barmer's support was there, which is there in this case. But what people tend to forget is while Tamadaw itself is very powerful, people say the strength is just about 3.5 lakhs. There is conscription that is happening. Again, we are not sure how many people have been forced into getting wearing uniform. But the biggest player in this is China. China realizes that in its own interest, uh, it is necessary for the Tamadaw to be in power, and it will do everything to ensure that Tamadaw doesn't fall. And I am saying this in many places where I've said they don't agree because what is coming in the
No, no.
media, the most read media house there is the Irrawaddy, sir. Now, if you read the Irrawaddy, it's again a publication sponsor from the West. They will make you feel as if Tamadaw is going to fall tomorrow, sir.
They will never fall.
Every editorial opinion pages speak that it is about to fall. It is about. We've been hearing this since I don't know last 3 years, but it's not going to happen very easily. We ourselves, as when as the DG there, sir, we had many of the Myanmar army people walking into Mizoram without food and having been overrun in a very bad state. Of course, they were flown back to Myanmar after that. But one thing they all said, that while we are in this condition, there have been many decisions also, incidentally, in the Myanmar army. Most of them, particularly the officers, were of the view that you cannot just overrun us. Our institution is too strong. So that is the point, I think. And the
Yeah,
second
yeah,
one,
I am very clear. I'm
sir.
very clear. Let me add to what you have said. I'm very clear about it. You see, the money in Myanmar, the finances are controlled by Tatmadaw, because gas goes to Tatmadaw, gas money goes to Tatmadaw. Their minerals, which are quite a bit, goes to Tatmadaw. Right, the complete ruby thing is Tatmadaw.
Yes,
Okay, the international deals go to Tatmadaw. So Tatmadaw can't fall. And the Chinese, actually, in my way of looking at it, I would like your opinion on this, are caught, because
yes, sir.
they are forced to maintain these armies in Shan state. Because if Shan state goes bottoms up, right, Yunnan goes bottoms up, and they are worried about it. It's not just one way. We all think that China is impregnable, but if something happens in Shan state and that disease goes into Yunnan, which already is there, right, the communist regime goes into a problem. One has to think politically on all these issues. So they support the Shan state and the locals from that point of view. Right? They also know that all these small two-bit armies cannot overrun Tatmadaw. And the democracy forces, the PDF and all, also are not strong enough democratically. So they have to support Tatmadaw. So Chinese themselves are playing a double game which they cannot help. They know they are stuck. The answer, in my opinion, to Myanmar's problem is Tatmadaw. I might be in a minority, but your views.
Uh, so you're absolutely right. I'll begin with the. You just made a mention that the power equation, or the power that Myanmar army holds. I'll put this in perspective by telling the viewers that 153 top industries in Myanmar are headed by military men serving or retired. 25 public sector PSUs equivalent there are again the people presiding over them, sitting over the money, are past and present generals. And these are what we have are Navratna and all equivalent to that. So these 25 industries that I'm talking of. Again, close to 186 of the 200 top CEOs equivalent of industry are military men. So the money is with them. So you're absolutely right on that, sir. The coming to the Chinese situation, this it's quite a paradox. So while they hold sway, they control the purse strings, but they're very sure, like the Myanmaris are very sure that they don't want China to be the only player, and China wants to be the only players. It doesn't want anybody else in Myanmar. This is very peculiar to Myanmar. Chinese are accommodative at other places, but in Myanmar they want it for strategic reasons, but more importantly also for the natural resources that there and the sparse population that is there in Myanmar. So, seen from their perspective, it is, like I said, very important. That is why this CMEC is actually an afterthought of the BRI. While today it may look like an extension of BRI, CMEC only came when Xi Jinping came there, I think in January 2020, so 2 months before COVID. That is when he came, and that formal agreement was signed. It was an afterthought. He said this should also be made an extension of BRI, while BRI in some way fructified or failed, as depends on which side you are speaking from in Pakistan. Here it is really not taken off, that grandiose plan of an inverted Y kind of a thing happening, so starting from Yunnan, coming down to this place,
Mandalay. From Mandalay, it comes down south.
the center, and then one branch going to Yangon in the south, and one going to the oil and gas pipeline that we spoke of. So there was supposed to be an alternate city also to be created near Yangon, with a population of about, they were going to put people, 2 lakh people, and all this was to be done by 2025. It is not even taken off. It also spoke of creating special economic zone kind of places, developing places along this highway which is coming from Yunnan. That also hasn't taken off. Um, so it is just something in the realms of a dream, uh, because, and the primary reason is, Myanmar is not playing balls. Anything that the Chinese ask for, they'll put a committee to study it, and with no date by when the study has to be submitted. So such like things, and gradually the resentment amongst the public is increasing towards China to give their land. They don't want to give their land anymore. Neither do they want the Chinese worksmen labor, like they're coming in Pakistan. They're not allowing. They will not allow us, because these people are, as you would know, so most of them are tribals. They're with a different
Tribals.
mindset. Yes, they are totally with a different mindset. But having said that, Chinese will not stop their attempts to kind of uh, push their way through. They have this hedge. They have UNSC presence. They have this ability to bail them out. So that engagement will continue. So it will be a blow hot, blow kind of a cold kind of a situation, but not a very easy task for the Chinese, sir.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So let's see where it goes. Like I said, India has a lot of scope out here. Uh, for many reasons, which I cannot understand, we are underplaying our hands. I think we need to just increase our, you know, stake in the game by just about 5 to 10%, and the Chinese will get upset. And they'll be upset in a big way. That's my view, but then that's a different story. Right. Look, we've really consumed a lot of time on Bangladesh and Myanmar. It was fascinating to listen to you. Let me be very honest.
Thank you,
I
sir.
don't want to get into Manipur too much. Maybe we'll have a separate sitting for Manipur, maybe next week. So give me a 5 minute recap on Manipur, and then we'll close it. Or I would say, where do you see Manipur heading? Because everyone knows what's happened in Manipur. You've spoken 3, 4 times, different places. Just give me where do you see Manipur going, and we'll cap it today, and then we'll talk about Manipur in detail maybe next week. Yeah.
So Manipur, there is a necessity to treat it as a national security issue. It's not just about let's say our Act East policy or developing the Northeast. It kind of goes much beyond, because what you do or not do in Manipur will have implications in rest of the country. Beginning, it will start with the Northeast itself. These flames that are there in Manipur have to be arrested at the earliest, failing which some tremors are already being felt in Mizoram, in Nagaland. You heard of NSA and IM, and even the Naga Assembly saying that please finalize the framework agreement. So there is a sense of disquiet. There's a feeling that our uh, brothers and sisters in Manipur across are having a tough time, and probably something needs to be done at the earliest. Even our framework agreement, something has to come up finally. So that demand, I see it increasing. Uh, I'm talking of Northeast, so Mizoram also, it is one part we spoke of the refugees. But if the situation in Myanmar doesn't improve, this influx of refugees will increase, and by extension, so will the proliferation of weapons, so will the proliferation of drugs. Year on year, sir, I've been in my other interviews, I've said year on year, the amount of contrabands, particularly drugs, has been
Has
increasing a lot,
increased.
have increased. So, what is happening in Manipur will spread to these two states to begin with. Then, obviously, it will be Assam will be the next, and gradually this will spread. Uh, you heard, one has heard in the media, and one has seen also that some happenings in Kerala, some happenings elsewhere. So it has a larger ramification. But more importantly, what one must also be worried about is the foreign hand. We spoke of Myanmar and how easily weapons are available here. Uh, these will come in. We the force which is always blamed is Assam Rifle not doing a border guarding duty adequately, to
But
which
that's
my
not.
refrain has been you have to have more troops there. Uh, that is in some way you'll be able to erase that problem of not just Manipur but the other states also. Uh, the minds of the people are very, very polarized. That has to be in some way. It can only stop if people in Manipur get involved in this. It's not any external agency. We can keep saying that a greater role needs to be played by the government. Yes, political statements have to be made, but the starting point has to be the people's, and we have to work back channel. We tried that in June last year, sir, and it was almost successful. And but that video of those two women being paraded went viral, and thereafter things have not come back to normal. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that there is a necessity of backdoor uh, talks to happen, and people who have adequate knowledge of Northeast should be put into this. They should be seen as they should be neutral, and they should be seen as neutral. And there are many people here, and I feel uh, from the uniform community itself, there will be many people who will be able to help, besides certain bureaucrats and uh, other people who have operated here. So that
Yeah,
is
I
how
think.
I.
Yeah, I think you've given a small overview of Manipur. What we'll do is next week sometime we'll think of a suitable date for both of us, and we'll talk of Manipur in detail and what are the likely outcomes and what are the likely solutions. Uh, Rather than focusing on whether drones have dropped bombs or not, that is a inevitability. If it does not drop today, it will drop tomorrow. That I'm not too bothered about. But we have to get the larger picture. And for all those who are seeing this video, I would like to put across something. The solution in Manipur is political. The tools are the forces. And today, the tools of this whole story are more in you know discussion than the political solution. And the political solution has to come from the Metis and the Cookies there. Okay, and I'm not going to ask even the old DG Assam Rifles to talk about it because he himself is at some place become part of the problem. I don't want to give him that cross. Me, I'm sitting far away, I see it. Now, let me outline a thing which has come up today that look, there should be a union territory for cookies. What will happen if there's a union territory for cookies? Right? Then someone will say, what about after all, Manipur is inhabited by Nagas, Metis, and cookies. Nagas will say, "What? Give us our territory," right? And then Metis will be left with that little valley. And they'll lose, right? And Nagas, if they get that territory, they'll say, "Why should we not have a Naga limb?" If there's a Naga limb, then they'll say, "Why not incorporate part of South Assam?" And then they'll say, let us take uh, Arunachal, Tirappan Changlang district and the Dima Hasao district of South Assam. People will talk like this. That's the natural flow where this is going. And then cookies themselves, someone will from Mizoram will say, "Oh, why don't we put this Mizoram, this union territory as part of Mizoram?" All these movements will start. And incidentally, all these ideas have come to me from people there. They are not come from heaven or my own head, right? So I can see the previous DG Assam rifle smiling because he knows what I'm talking is right. Okay, and this can take the whole lot of Northeast into a tailspin. I think it's time for our political leaders, whether it's the PM, the Home Minister, or the Chief Minister of the state, who should be actually removed at post states, or whoever. and even Mr. Rahul Gandhi as a leader of opposition to sit together and get the state back into some kind of normalcy and get meaties and cookies talking to each other across a table and not through drones and bloody artillery and guns. And that's my view, but we'll go into it in great detail later. I hope you don't mind, Pradeep, unless you have anything important to put across. Otherwise, we'll not go further.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
And I know I see a lot of questions. I see a lot of questions from people from Bangladesh and people from Northeast. Hold your horses because there's a part two to this show, right? And please remember, you like the show, subscribe to it. You like, put a like button. But if you don't like, I don't mind. Say I don't like it. But don't come and abuse. If you abuse, I'll throw people out. As simple as that. I'm a Fauji. Okay, a good Fauji. I know how to throw people out and I could get a damn. And I would like all Bangladeshis to understand. We don't want your sovereignty or territorial integrity to be violated. We are not interested. Please understand, if we had to do it, we would have done it 75, 50 years back when the complete Indian army was there and you would have said thank you for it. We didn't do it then. We don't want to do it now. But there's a way to do things and not do things. I'll repeat it. I will talk nicely to you till you talk nicely to me. The day you stop talking nicely to me, I know how to abuse also. There's one question which I want to answer. You people keep saying, Indian media is so bad, this, everything. But I would like to tell every Bangladeshi here. Indian media is reacting to what news is coming out of Bangladesh. Please remember that. So look into your own system to see why others are reacting. Right? With this, then Nair, thanks a lot because I think you brought a whole lot of new perspectives on Bangladesh and on Myanmar, especially on Myanmar. We'll talk of Manipur and the rest of the Northeast, and your overview of the Northeast was really fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for everyone who's come and watched the show. Next week, we'll come back to you. Good evening and